It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
The 2019-20 NBA season just finished, and we won't know the exact date of when the next season would start. Last season, we not only saw great improvements from the likes of Bam Adebayo, Brandon Ingram, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but there were also surprising breakouts like Devontae Graham, Duncan Robinson, and Gary Trent Jr. While the players I've selected won't necessarily become all-stars, there are convincing factors that could lead to a significant increase in production. Also, we still got the offseason ahead of us, which could change things a lot. But let's get into my super early list for potential breakout players in the upcoming season. First up is Coby White. It's sorta cheating to put a rookie on this list, since improvements are expected in the following season after getting acclimated to the NBA. His inefficient rookie year doesn't spell much confidence, but he was on the roll during the last 11 games of the season, averaging 24, 5, and 4 on really good shooting splits. Swapping Jim Boylan's uncreative offense with Billy Donovan, who maximized CP3, Shai, and Schroeder, Coby White has the inside track to break out next year. White has a score-first mentality and a microwave pull-up game for guards to excel in this league. He's the Bulls' best guard behind Zach LaVine, so whether he starts or not, he could have a Dennis Schroeder type of improvement next year. Staying with the Bulls, Wendell Carter Jr. is another potential candidate. He's almost averaging a double-double as their starting center, but his skill set hasn't been fully utilized. Coming out of the draft, he was compared to Al Horford, a do-it-all big who elevates his team on both ends of the floor. The Bulls' blitzing scheme constantly pulled him out on the perimeter and out of position to protect the paint. Offensively, he was strictly used as a roller last year. A big part of Horford's offensive impact is his ability to stretch the floor and his passing ability. While Carter's shooting still needs time to develop, his playmaking will make a huge impact to string together the talents of LaVine, White, and Markkanen. Add in the fact that Billy Donovan used Steven Adams the same way, expect Carter to get more involved offensively. Mitchell Robinson is probably one of the most obvious one on the list. He has all the potential to become an effective two-way rim runner, but foul trouble has always kept him off the floor. After spending a lot of money on the front court last year, Robinson could have a clearer path to getting big minutes. Under a defensive-minded coach in Tom Thibodeau, Robinson should become more disciplined and anchor the Knicks' defense for longer stretches. Although that doesn't just happen overnight, Robinson is a type of player that keeps getting on these lists every offseason due to his immense potential. Jonathan Isaac is another player that has already made an impact to his team. He's been improving every year, but injuries keep slowing him down. He's pegged as a defensive specialist with an improving complementary offensive game. Aside from his frame, there was a reason why the name Kevin Durant came up as a comparison. He has a fluid jumper and flashed some pull-up game in college, but only started to materialize last year. He's been shooting more efficiently while creating more by himself. Compare this to his teammate Aaron Gordon, who's been trending the wrong way. Isaac is one roster move away from breaking out. The Magic have a pretty balanced shot distribution, but with Fournier possibly becoming a free agent, and numerous trade rumors for Gordon and Vucevic, Isaac might be seeing more than just 10 shot attempts per game next year. Malik Beasley joins this list as well, and there's a reason why articles reported that his next contract could hit around 18 to 20 million annually. While that probably won't happen, Beasley averaged over 20 points and hit around 42% of his 8 3-point attempts per game after getting traded to Minnesota. Despite being a suspect defender, his track record as a shooter is enough to warrant interest from teams. Although only teams with cap space could acquire him, barring a sign and trade, this ensures he'll have a large role on rebuilding teams, and definitely surpass his overall averages last season. Another player benefiting off recency bias is Christian Wood. Since February, Wood averaged 22 points and 9 boards on great shooting splits, but there is a buyer beware sign written all over it. By that time, the Pistons have basically given up on the season, and Wood did put up big numbers on a tanking Pelicans team in the previous season. His numbers could be considered empty calories, and even inflated as a primary scoring option. Rebuilding teams could still provide him that role, while others would acquire him as a complementary player. Personally, I think whether he breaks out next year would depend on where he lands in free agency, so we might have to come back to this one. I was tempted to put any one of the Hawks' young wings on this list, but ended up singling out Kevin Huerter. The Hawks revolves around Trae Young and John Collins. Besides those two, no one else averages more than 12 shots per game. While both Hunter and Reddish have a higher ceiling, Huerter was entrusted with more responsibility after his injury and still maintained his efficiency. Not only can Huerter complement Young and Collins with his shooting, but he also seems like the most ready to become the third option if the Hawks roster remains the same. Next up is either Shake Milton or Furkan Korkmaz. The main reason behind these two selections is the hiring of Doc Rivers. Doc always had a shooter running around the court to facilitate his offense. As the roster currently stands, Milton and Korkmaz are the only options. While Milton has more shake and creation, Korkmaz makes it up with his movement off ball and off balance shots. I'm leaning a bit more towards Milton because that extra off the dribble creation will let him stay on the floor late in the game. Then again, I feel like the Sixers will go and pursue another shooter this offseason. Lastly, there's Cameron Johnson. This is pretty straightforward due to his performance in the bubble. He was thrusted into the starting lineup as a stretch 4 and averaged over 13 points on 50% shooting. He did just shoot 35% from deep during that span, but he's too good of a shooter to think that would last. With the rumors that the Suns put Dario Saric on the trading block and the 8-0 bubble performance, it would be silly not to stay with that starting lineup next season. On the other hand, no one will mistake Johnson as a primary scoring option, and the Suns don't run him off screens as often as Joe Harris or Duncan Robinson. Nonetheless, Johnson is going to see a bigger role next year, barring any huge acquisition by the Suns. Then we have our honorable mentions. I know a lot of you will be asking, where is Michael Porter Jr. and Tyler Herro? They are prime candidates for this list, but both their teams have plenty of depth. MPJ has shown a lot of flashes throughout the season, but his playing time was limited due to his defense. Assuming the Nuggets retain their free agents, MPJ won't see a huge uptick in minutes, with Will Barton returning as well. Herro was coming off the bench last season to balance out their bench unit. After Dragic's great playoff performance and Heat's focus on chasing big free agents, Herro's touches might stay the same unless Nunn and Robinson take a backseat in minutes, similar to the playoff rotation. Plus, it's not like Herro had a bad statistical rookie year as well. Compare his playoff averages to his regular season, that sort of uptick would be realistic, but wouldn't be considered a huge breakout. Gary Trent Jr. had a breakout in the NBA bubble, and he'd probably be the first guard off the bench to complement Lillard and McCollum. With the Blazers at full health, fingers crossed, and getting Trevor Ariza and Rodney Hood back, Trent Jr. might move down the pecking order. Derek White is another honorable mention because he's had a breakout in the 2019 playoffs, but didn't back it up this season. He did it again during the bubble when his minutes jumped, but the Spurs have plenty of young guards, preventing him from consistently getting over 30 minutes a game. And there you have it. Let me know down in the comments section whether I've missed out anyone. As I said before, this list could change a lot based on how the offseason goes. Like the Nuggets and Heat could consolidate their assets for stars and pave way for MPJ and Herro to take on like 30 something minutes a game. Or Wood could join a competitive team where averaging 20 and 10 is impossible. Anyways, I'll probably make another one of these closer to the start of next season. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Remember to drop a like down below, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.